Hello and welcome to TPU TV. This is Dilip. If you're new here and if you don't know me, then I am a podcaster, blogger, and an affiliate marketer. And I run the podcast called as the Podcasting University, which is all about podcasting and podcasting tips. Now, I usually do videos around simple and actionable tips around podcasting on how to get started with your own podcast. But this time around, I am doing a slightly different kind of an episode. So, this is basically one of the first coaching style episodes that I've done on the show. And what I plan to do with this kind of an episode is to bring on board an existing podcaster who probably has questions around something regarding their podcast or something related to podcasting, and they can ask me two questions and I'll respond to both of their questions on this call. So this is the first such episode that I did, and in today's video I have Arpita, who is a podcaster who already runs a podcast called as the Lighthouse Talk podcast. And in today's episode, she has a question regarding finding guests for her show, and I'll answer that question on the call. So let's get straight onto the call and see what her questions are and what are my suggested tips to solve these problems. Hi, Arpita. Welcome to this is going to be the first session on the coaching style episodes that I'm planning to do on the Podcasting University show. And you are the first person to come on this show. So, a warm welcome to you and welcome to the Podcasting University. And before we actually get started, and before I respond to your questions, I would like to know a brief about you and how your podcasting journey has been. What is your podcast all about?
Okay, sir. So, first of all, very thank you for giving me this opportunity to ask questions, ask my doubts. Before that, let me start with my podcasting journey. So, I started my podcast in 2020, and it was about parenting, Adora. It was about parenting, everything about parenting I started with. So, I've named my podcast as Lighthouse Talk Podcast because I didn't want to stick with this one topic, which is the parenting topic. That's why my podcast name is different and the topic is different. It's Parenting Adora podcast. Now I'm planning the next podcast, which is going to be on the menstrual health and also menstrual awareness, because there's a lot
Okay.
and lots of ladies who are still in a taboo. There is the society I live in, we have we have a working women, working men, everything is good, everyone is classy, but nobody talks about menstruation till the time, right? Nobody tells gives the information about
Right.
menstruation to their girl and to their boys, because this is very important. This is what I feel is very important, that you should teach these things at your household first. Don't rely on the school, don't rely on the
Hmm.
social norms and everything. So I'm planning my next podcast on menstrual health, menstrual awareness, and menstrual health, right? But the
Okay.
thing which I am stuck at is like how to invite guests. I cannot, even if I speak to someone who is not very famous or not very expert, but they have some their own experience. I guess people don't listen to that podcast, which is what my experience is from my last podcast. And if I invite a guest who is like very expert on the topic, and who's very known, any influencer or something, then I get more listens on my podcast. So my question is, how to approach them, how to invite them, because knowing me, I'm not very famous person, right? So nobody responds. I
Hmm.
mean, one out of 100 maybe sometimes responds. Sometimes they, after responding also, they set back that we'll get back to you and everything like that. So how to approach them, how to approach the best guest for my podcast?
Okay. So I think it's a good question. A lot of people have that question. So there are a couple of things that I would like to address here. Now, when it comes to bringing guests on your show, there are two things that you need to keep in mind. That the guests, it is good that we approach influencers, but like what you said, when you reach out to people who are famous and when you are not famous, you are starting off with a show and people don't know you, your show is not well known, the possibility of an influencer agreeing to come on your podcast will be very less, which means that expect a lot of rejections before one person agrees to come on your show. So the two aspects that I want you to keep in mind is that guests are always not about influencers. Now, like what you said, when influencers come on your show, there will be an uptick in listenership, and that uptick in listenership is primarily because that person is well known. So some of their followers will come and listen to that particular episode. But what studies show and what is proven is that those people who come to listen to that show is coming for that particular guest. They are not coming for the content that you are putting out. So while you see an increase in listenership there, that increase will not be sustainable and it will not stay throughout your podcasting journey. So bringing influencers is good to give that impetus or that momentum to your show, so that people know that okay, Arpita brought in a well known person on the show. So when that well known person is there on the show, which means that there is some value that Arpita is providing, yeah, from her podcast. So you can use influencers to get that momentum in. But also remember that, the content that you're putting out, the information that you're putting out, that the value that you're offering in that content necessarily need not come from influencers or famous people. It can also come from people who are not that famous. Now, what you have to know is that when you're picking guests, ensure that you're keeping a balance between the number of famous people you're bringing in and the number of not so famous people who are coming on your show. This will help you in two things. One is that it will help you build the momentum, and second, it will also help you build yourself as an authority. Because if it is all influencers on your podcast, people will come for the influencers. And in podcasting, there is a saying that we say that people come for the guests but stay on the show for you. So you have to
Okay.
build that authority for yourself, for people to stick around with your podcast. And if you always keep bringing in only famous people who are very famous and you are not that famous, then what will happen is that listenership will not stick. So when you are picking guests, keep in mind that you need to maintain a balance between influencers and not so famous people, but who can offer valuable content, who can give value to your audience. Now, those are two things that you might want to keep in mind. Now, second, when you're approaching guests, like what I said, you know, keep in mind the first expectation that you need to go in there with is that you're going to face a lot of rejections. Not everybody is going to come in, but there will be that one person who might agree to come on your show, which is what your first target should be. Your target is not to get a yes from all the 50 people that you might be reaching out to. Your target is to get that one person to agree to come on your show. And I will give you an example. Now, we had a podcast that was all about recipes. Now, we were doing recipes throughout for a long time, and there is a lot of downloads that we've got. Now, in the past, there have been people who approached us to want to come on the show, but we somehow weren't doing a guest for our podcast then. At one point, we thought, okay, let us bring on some guests. And when we started approaching people, people weren't agreeing to come on. They weren't that okay to come on a recipe podcast and talk about food. But we approached almost about 60 to 70 people, and there were two people who agreed to come on the show and two well known names to agreed to come on the show. Those two episodes got us a lot of downloads, which took our total downloads from almost about 1.75 million to cross about 2.25 million. And the best part is that we put one of those episode on YouTube, and that one episode got us almost about 1,500 subscribers on YouTube. But the point is that while we got those subscribers, in order to keep those subscribers with us, what we had to do is we had to focus on our core content and offer them value. So while these two influencers helped us get that momentum, it is our usual content that has helped ensure that we are keeping those guests, those audience on the show. We are able to keep those listenership on the show. So when you are approaching influencers, keep in mind that You will approach 70, 75, 80 people, and only one or two people might agree. But your target is first to bring that one person on the show. When you get that one person on the show, use that as a reference. Now, there are two ways you can do that. You can use that guest influence and speak to them. If they enjoyed being on the show, I'm sure they'll recommend their, people around them to also come and listen to the show and join the show. So what you can do is ask them if they will have any references of people who would agree to come as guests on the show. Use their network
Okay.
and reach out to people. So there what will happen is you are getting the edification from that influencer, and just because that influencer has recommended, the possibility of people agreeing to come on your show increases. So use the network of the people who are agreeing to come on your show to find newer guests. Second, publicize your podcast as much as possible using that influencer's name. The
Okay.
reason that you spend so much time to send out emails to reach out to 70 people and get that one person to agree to come on your show is because you can use their name. It's not that they come on your show for once and then you forget it. Use their name as
Okay.
much as possible, wherever possible, to publicize your content, publicize your podcast. As much as possible, use their name for promotions on social media. People need to know that this person came on your show, and that will help you get a lot many other people come on your show. So use their name as much as possible to get next guests onto your show. Don't just be let it be as one off episode where somebody came in and you forget about their influencers. You did all of that effort to bring that person to use their name. So ensure that you're using it to the maximum. And then to find people, like what I said, you use their network, you reach out to them, ask for references from them, use their reference to reach out to other people and tell them that, see, this person was there on this show and that episode was well reached. There was a lot of people. If you can put in some stats there, you can always put in some stats saying that there were these many number of listeners for that episode. People found a lot of value. So you will be able to reach out to a completely newer audience. Your voice will reach out to a completely newer audience. That is something that I'm trying to do. So if you come on the show, it will be a lot of value add for my audience, for me, and it'll also help you as well, because from a social perspective, you'll be able to build a newer audience. So use that as a reference to reach out to other people.
It's just a follow-up question, like you said that you need to promote it with their name, like you need to use their name as much as you can. So what's the perfect, like, should I only use Instagram or should I use all the social networks like LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram? How important it is to promote our broadcast on all the social media, or just one social media can work?
See, one social media necessarily will not work, because I'll tell you the reason why. Because every social media network has a different kind of user base. Somebody who's on Instagram might be a next gen who's interested in clicking that picture, putting it on Instagram, telling the world that I've traveled to this place, I'm eating this food. So that user base is slightly different from the user base on LinkedIn. Now, for LinkedIn, people there are out to find professionals. They want to network with professionals. So they are a little more serious than the people that you will find on Instagram. And people there like talking about professional points, aspects. Similarly, when you compare it with Twitter, Twitter, I feel, is for people who think that I don't have the time to browse through images or to read through long posts. I want to get information in 220 characters. So I am somebody who's in a little bit of hurry. I'll just be scrolling through, find some important points there, and then I'm done with it. So the user base of each of these different social media networks are different. While there might be some overlapping somewhere, but there is a different base. What you need to decide is which out of these networks
Mhm.
are places where you will be able to find your audience. Now, In your case, for example, you'll be able to find your audience on Instagram a lot, because you are going to target those age groups who like using Instagram a lot. But you will be able to find your guests a lot on LinkedIn, because they're also going to be professionals. So your guests might necessarily not be there on Instagram, but there the possibility of them being on LinkedIn is more, or maybe they being on Twitter is more. So you cannot exclude LinkedIn and Twitter altogether, but put together a strategy which balances these networks, where you are able to find your listeners and your guests. Your guests need to know about you. Your listeners needs to know the value that you're going to give them through your podcast. So pick social media networks in such a way, but only do it based on how much your resources. Don't stretch yourself too much to be on all the social media network and not being there on any of those networks seriously. So pick only networks that you can manage with the resources that are
Mhm.
available. But
Okay.
consider most of these networks from these perspectives, and then take a judicious call on what is it that you want to focus more on.
Okay, cool. Very, very insightful answers. There's just one more question which I want to ask is like, podcast is audio platform, right? But now a
Right.
lot of people are recording it video based only, because people want to see who are speaking, right? They would love to see. So
Right.
I just want to ask how important it is, or how impactful it is, when you only record audio and when you do audio plus video. Which one is like better and more impactful?
See, this once again, you are targeting two different kind of audience. Now, the very reason why podcasting became popular is because of the flexibility and the ease of access. So I didn't need to keep, as in I need to didn't need to stay glued onto my screen to watch a video. I could just put my earplug on and listen to that audio even when I'm jogging, or I'm doing something else. So that is one of the primary reasons why podcasting became popular. So when you look at podcasting per se, or only from a podcasting perspective, audio is all that you will need. And also keep in mind that your podcast is being circulated on listening apps or directories which only have the ability to listen. They don't have the ability to show a video. Now, where is video shown? Video is shown maybe on YouTube, and considering Spotify is introducing a video podcasting option, so your video might show up on Spotify or on YouTube. These are the only two platforms where video is going to be shown. So there are two different kind of audience. One is that audience who prefers putting their ear plug on and listening to the audio, who will be there on all of those audio platforms like a Hubhopper, Spotify, or Amazon Prime Music, and all of those places. But somebody who is a fan of YouTube is a different audience who believes in watching a video there. So your video is going to be for them. So to answer your question, is only audio okay? Audio is absolutely okay if you don't want to put in that effort of recording video, editing, and putting it out on YouTube. But if you have the resource to put together a video as well, please go do it, because YouTube has not been into podcasting till now. They are only getting into podcasting now. While I think it is released only in the United States right now. While there also it is only an audio medium that they are preferring, but they are encouraging creators to put videos as well. So when you create a video, there is a possibility of reaching a newer audience through YouTube, and you will, because you already have an audio, you will anyways be able to use your usual listenership who are on listening apps.
Mhm.
So if you have the resource, if you have the time, please go create the video. But the only thing is that there is some amount of time that you will have to put in there for editing, mixing, doing whatever, and putting it out on YouTube. One. And second, from a YouTube perspective, you might want to keep in mind that some amount of quality is important, because on YouTube, if the video quality isn't that great, a lot of times the viewers just get ticked off and then they browse away. So if you are able to meet those requirements for video, then you can absolutely go create the video and put it on YouTube. But is it required? It is not required. You can always use all of these podcast listening apps to get the promotion that is needed. Just another piece that I always advise or I always suggest is that, if your podcast is too much focused on guests, if your podcast is not a monologue, you're bringing in a lot of guests as an interview podcast and running it as an interview podcast, then what I would recommend is build an online portfolio for yourself. You might want to put together don't put a very jazzy website and all, just put together a very simple website which has your online presence, which shows your online presence. That should be that one stop shop for people to know more about who you are, what you're doing, who have been all of those guests who have come on your show earlier, and all of the links to your social media platforms. So, if you can put together all of that on, even if it is a one pager website, one place on the internet, you have to have that one page on the internet which talks about you. And whenever you reach out to guests,
Sure.
just give them that link so that they can go and check out. They have all of the information that is required at one place. They don't need to go and search on Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn on who Arpita is, what she's doing, what is her podcast, listen to, go to maybe Google Podcast or Amazon Prime Music to listen to that. Everything is available on that one page. They can listen to a few episodes maybe there, see who you are, and everything is there, and then they can make a call and take that decision on coming or not coming on your show. So put that one page together if you are somebody who's running an interview podcast.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering my questions and your advice. I mean, I will be starting this new podcast very soon. Let's see how many people say yes to it. And it's the only reason I want famous people on my podcast is because my topic is a little sensitive. I have value, right?
Right.
But nobody will come listen to me
Right.
until unless they know me or they know any famous people is there. So I just want to bring that
Correct.
attention once, and then I'm fine. Then I'm fine with myself only, like monologue podcast. So that's the reason. But thank
Right.
you so much for bringing in light to these questions. Thanks a lot, sir.
No problems. Thank you. I hope you liked the conversation that I had with Arpita on this episode. And if you too have a question related to podcasting, then you can always reach out to me. You can visit the podcastinguniversity.com/contact. Use the contact option there, or you can even use the contact us button on the menu there and reach out to me with your question. And we can jump on a quick call and you can ask me those two questions, and I'll be able to help you with answering those questions on the call itself. So join me on these coaching call style episodes that I'm doing on the Podcasting University, and maybe I'll be able to resolve some of the problems that you have with your show. If you like this video, then do give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the bell notification in order to stay updated with the latest videos that I'm releasing. And there is a lot of value that I give out every week through the videos that I release on this channel. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with the latest videos that I release. And if you're new to podcasting, then you might want to join my 10-day free e-course on how to get started with your own podcast. It's a very simple course that is delivered through email, one lesson every day, and it is free. You can join the free course by visiting the podcastinguniversity.com/free-guide. You'll be able to find a link somewhere on this video. Also in the description box below, go ahead and join the free e-course and take the 10-day e-course and get started with your own podcast in 10 days. That is all that I have for today's video. I'll be back again the next week with another interesting discussion around podcasting tips. Until then, you all have a wonderful rest of the week.